Welcome back, my friends, to the Derate The Hate podcast. I am your host, Wilk Wilkinson, your blue-collar sage, calming outrage and helping to navigate a world divided by fog and those who would spread that fear, outrage, and grievance. Each week, I'm sharing stories from my path and using the power of conversation and collaboration with my many great guests. Together, we chart a course toward understanding, bridging divides, and fostering a community where wisdom prevails over discord. Friends, it really is about bettering the world one attitude at a time. We did not create the hate, but together we can derate the hate. The only good thing about a bad attitude is we have the ability as individuals to change it. For me, it starts with gratitude and personal accountability. I am so incredibly grateful that you have taken the time to join me for another powerful DTH episode. Please remember to subscribe and share the DTH podcast with your network of friends. If you would like to support the show, check out the Support Us page on the Derate The Hate website. With that, my friends, let's get to it. Each week on this show, we try to have conversations that challenge our thinking, deepen our empathy, and bring us one step closer to bridging the divides that are tearing so many people apart. Today's guest is someone who spent years exploring the big questions that drive those kind of conversations. Jonah Primo is a Sydney-based creative, producer, and philosopher of sorts, someone who brings stories and ideas to life through every medium he can get his hands on. He's interviewed everyone from hermetic gurus to A-list celebrities, scoring music for top brands, and even sold art NFTs to John Legend. But what drew me to Jonah is the heart and intention behind his work, especially his commitment to meaningful dialogue. Jonah is the producer of Principle of Charity, Australia's #1 philosophy podcast, where he brings together people with opposing views and challenges them to engage with each other's best arguments, not their worst. And on his own show, The Overexamined Life, Jonah takes listeners on a deeply personal journey through forgiveness, gratitude, mindfulness, and the philosophical ideas that helped him transform dissatisfaction into joy. In this episode, we dig into everything from tribalism and moral blindness to the power of lived experience and the importance of being fully present. Jonah and I talk about what it really means to listen, especially to those we disagree with, and why empathy takes real cognitive effort. He's got a background in music, philosophy, and finance, which means he approaches these conversations with both heart and a sharp analytical mind. So get ready, my friends, because this is a deep, enriching talk that might just change the way that you see things. Let's get into it with my friend, Jonah Primo. Here we go. Jonah Primo, thank you for joining me on the Derate The Hate podcast today. I know we had to cancel this one time before, but so glad you're here today. Thanks for joining me, man.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Wilk. I'm a fan of your message.
Appreciate that for sure, because the message is why I do it too. And I one of the things when you reached out to me, Jonah, is when I saw the work that you've been doing, over your, I guess, catalog of work that you've kind of been doing for the past several years. You were really talking my language. You're talking about forgiveness and gratitude and mental awareness and these different things that I talk so much about. But then you also do work, and we're going to dive into a lot of different things here today, Jonah, in a short amount of time. But one of the things that really attracted me to the work that you've been doing is this Principle of Charity podcast that's again part of the catalog of stuff that you produce, this Principle of Charity and having conversations with people that we disagree with and kind of being able to steel man, being able to present the strongest argument for the person that we're having this conversation with, and doing all these different things that are just really part of the language that I speak, Jonah. So very grateful that you're here today. So let's start our conversation there. How did you first, because I know this is part of your personal story from what I gathered. How did you start in this kind of space of being able to work through these things, gathering parties together? I mean, I know you're in Australia. I'm in the United States. I don't know if polarization is as big a thing there as it is here, but tell me how you got started in this space, Jonah.
Most of us can see that we've built this tribal world. And what happens is people will come in with all of their biases and with their agenda, and they'll find the weakest links of another person's arguments so that they can cut them down. As you said, they'll straw man the opposing view. And we wanted to create a space where the actual format of the show was to strongman the view you disagree with. So we bring on two people with completely different views on a big issue, like euthanasia or abortion or identity politics or whatever it is. They're on two different sides of the spectrum, and they have to go in. This is the format of the show. They have to go in and explain the other person's argument in the most generous, charitable way, in a way that means, and it hurts. You can see it in their faces. They're dying inside, trying to argue that whatever it is, fat shaming is a good thing, or whatever it is, some crazy idea that for them is insane, but for the other person, it's their whole life. And they have to be really generous. And what we've found is by putting two people in the same room, and often these people actually have a long history of attacking each other on Twitter, because they're public figures. We do public figures and experts. So often they know each other. They know this is their kind of adversary in the space. And then we put them in a room and they've written articles about how much the other person's an idiot. But when you put them in a room, somehow that disappears. 95% of the time, it disappears, and they're generous. They start finding common ground. They start finding little bits of overlap. Their minds are never changed, and that's not the goal. The goal is not to make someone who believes one thing believe another. The goal is just to see, when you come in and you're this far away from each other, and that's how you talk and that's how you interact on the internet, maybe you can just talk here, just 10% either side.
Yeah,
maybe there are some things. Yeah,
that's beautiful, man. You know what? So obviously this is very similar to a lot of what I do, and I love this idea. So let me get this right, because I have, just full disclosure, have not seen this happen yet. I mean, I've read about it. I've looked into it a little bit after you reached out to me. Are you physically putting these two people in the same room that have written about each other, called each other out on social media, these different things? You're physically bringing them together in a studio to talk through this?
Well, that was originally the intention, but the thing is, the caliber of guests that we have, we have Oscar winners and all sorts of really top people, and we just found that if we wanted to get really the best of the best, we had to go all over the world. So sometimes we're in 4 time zones at the same time.
Okay.
And we just try and figure it out. So it's mostly online, but they're still looking at each other. They're still looking each other in the eyes.
Oh, for sure.
Which is the key thing. They're in the same digital space. To put them in a studio together would be incredible, but it's not feasible.
Like a cage match, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the reason that I ask, because I mean, I've done a lot of these things, and I've been able to put together some interesting conversations, and trying to get people on stage together, people who are seen in many ways as these arch enemies. Definitely not the easiest thing in the world, and usually there's one side or the other that's just not willing to share a space with that person, right? But I kind of touching on what you're talking about here, Jonah, is the idea that so many things that I've talked about on this podcast are coming out in my mind right now because of what you're talking about, and the idea that we put together two people who are diametrically opposed on a particular issue, and then this whole keyboard warrior thing in this internet ecosystem that so many of us spend so much time in now.
Yeah.
people will do things and say things online that they would never do in person, which is why I asked
Yes.
that question, because I'm like, okay, well, yeah, obviously you put two people in the same space, but yeah, the digital space, it is much different to write about somebody or talk about somebody or record something about somebody when you're not looking them in the eye. But when you're live and looking them in the eye, whether it be digitally or in person, certainly in person, but even digitally, it changes the dynamic of that conversation, and it definitely brings out a different piece in them. What I really love is the idea of trying to make this particular person present the strongest argument for what they don't actually believe in, that whole
Mm.
steel manning thing, right? And then I'm reminded of my friend Angel Eduardo and his star manning concept of I'm going to present this issue from your point of view in a way that you would actually agree with it. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, this is one of the most important concepts out there, Jonah, because far too often people who are diametrically opposed on these issues, they think they know what the other person is saying. They think they know what the other person is thinking, but quite often they just really do not. They are not
Exactly.
in that same space. They are not. They are in their silo, and that person's in their silo, and that's why the us versus them thing is there in the first place. And they just really don't know. So actually forcing somebody to put in the work to be
Hmm.
able to do that thing, so incredibly important.
I couldn't agree more, Will. Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just one of those things where, like, you know, imagine you're doing a PhD on the subject, and you're just, as you say, you're siloed in, right? Because everything you do is designed to reinforce a thesis, and so it is a rare thing to have someone have to basically construct and back up the thesis of something they don't agree with, especially on a topic that they might feel very emotionally connected to. That's part of it. Like, there's an emotional side to all of this as well, built in. So it's not just that you're siloed into the intellectualism. You're also siloed into emotionals, and you might have past experience or traumas that have led you down a certain path, and that makes it even harder, right? That makes it even harder to take on the opposing view. But if we don't look at what the other person is thinking, we dehumanize them, right? Like
Yes,
we
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's an important point. Is so many of these things, so many of these problems, so many of these divides are caused by just our lack of understanding who that other person is, and then as we further entrench ourselves in our own silos, it becomes so much easier to dehumanize that other person.
It's a good point.
And
It does get easier. And you want to. That's the other thing. You want to dehumanize them because if they're human, it's hard to fight against another human. But if they stop looking like humans to you, if they start being this something that's other, it's very, very easy to sort of take those next steps to do something cruel or immoral.
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that othering part of the whole us versus them paradigm is one of the core tenets of it, right? As
Mm.
long as we can as long as we can convince ourselves that those other people are, they aren't just wrong, they're evil. A
Exactly.
they aren't another human, they're some kind of monster. We convince ourselves of these things, and then we allow our imagination to build upon that perception of that person, making
Hmm.
that person into something that is just totally foreign to us. Again, a monster, some kind of evil entity that we don't want any part of.
Hmm.
But when
Hmm.
you set them down and put them eye to eye and say, okay, well, now I want you to take their point, they're going to take your point, and we're going to have this conversation. We're going to see how this flies. That introduces an entirely different dynamic, because a lot of the times in these things, when they're just listening to a person from afar, they're not actually forced to interact with that person. They can tune out a lot of what that person's saying. But now all of a
Yep.
sudden, when it's me, I have to actually present that argument from that person's point of view, it's awfully damn difficult for me to not listen to myself as I'm talking, right?
Totally. That's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, the other thing there, and this sort of spills into the mindfulness space, but we don't really decide in advance what we say or even what we think. We don't, like, what I'm saying right now, I haven't thought to say before it comes out of my mouth. And, part of what the work that I do is just sort of a lot of introspection through the meditation space and realizing that thoughts do just appear. And if thoughts do just appear, as opposed to us deciding to think something, then that means, if that's my experience from meditating, that means it's other people are experiencing that too. They're sitting down, thoughts are appearing, and you can build in some empathy there, because you go, well, if we're not deciding our thoughts, where are the thoughts coming from? Well, they're coming from two things. They're coming from genetics, and they're coming from cultural experience, nurture, which means you can kind of trace back everything that someone says. If you had all the variables, you could figure out why they said it. They grew up in a certain way. Their brain works a certain way. And once you have that kind of empathy and you realize that people didn't just decide to do something really cruel or evil, but rather it's this aggregate of all these different inputs and variables, you go, okay, they're not just choosing to be evil for the sake of it. They've kind of been cornered into this position through what they've been taught, through whatever neurodivergence they have, through whatever, just the way that their brain works, their culture, their friends, their parents, none of which they chose, right? You don't choose your parents. And all of a sudden, you can let go of a lot of the hate when you think about it that way. You can go, okay, this person didn't really have a choice to grow up in this society where they were forced to do these things and had these experiences that led them to be a bad person. And it completely allows you to reframe your concept of retribution and justice, because you go, okay, I don't need to punish someone for the sake of punishing them. That they might need to be removed from society if they do evil things, but you can take out the sort of punitive side of things, the joy in someone else's suffering, once you acknowledge that they are this combination of nature and nurture, as opposed to just evil. As you said, very few people are evil. I mean, there's psychopaths, right? But everything else is some sort of ideological mismatch.
Typically some kind of learned behavior based on our own life experience, right?
Exactly.
Jonah? I mean, many of these things, and you make a fantastic point. I want to dive into that or tackle that a little bit deeper, because when we talk about the lived experience of others and how that relates to empathy and how that plays a part in our own empathy or our lived experience, not allowing for the basic understanding of who that other person is, because their lived experience is so much different than ours, and we don't allow ourselves to actually think of it in terms of that, right? I think a lot of that is discounted, but I think it's something that cannot be overstated. How important it is that this person's lived experience. This is another thing, to take this kind of a different spot, but thinking about, historical figures and things that have happened with people throughout history, and trying to judge people from history based on the standards of today. It's a false premise. We can't do that.
Yeah.
But it's done so often. It's done with people from history, but more importantly, it's done today with people that we know nothing about. We just don't understand who they are because we don't have their lived experience. We don't have the ability to truly empathize with them because we don't know what storms they've battled. We don't know their demons. We don't know what they've gone through. But we have to try and put ourselves in that mental space. Talk a little bit more about that relationship between lived experience, being able to empathize with others, and how that works in works together.
Yeah, well, as you said, I mean, the other thing we don't know is what's culturally appropriate in different scenarios. And I think, as you said, we judge people from history based on different inputs because some things were okay and some things weren't okay. And you know what? In 100 years, they will be doing the exact same thing to us. They'll be like, how could these people wear clothes made in sweatshops? I mean, that's disgusting. That is, all these different parts where we're, building in some cruelty, eating animals, whatever. We're right now, that's standard. That's the default. But maybe in 100 years, they'll go, how could anyone ever do that? And we'll go, well, at the time, everyone was doing it. You have these worlds that you're built into, and you can think that you are the most moral, good person on the planet. And you might be doing a lot of good. There are people who really do a lot of good. But there are people who are doing a lot of good while doing evil that just isn't evil yet. It just we haven't decided it's evil yet. And society in 100 years might have a very different moral compass, just like we do now. So it doesn't justify anything that happened 100 years ago. It's not saying that stuff was ever okay, but what it is saying is maybe if you were there, you would have done the same. That's the difference. It's not saying that those are good things. It's saying, would you really have gone against the grain? Honestly, when everyone's doing something, everyone's saying this is okay, would you have as well? We can't know. We can't know. I think there's always going to be people who fight for what's right and are ahead of the curve. But I don't think we can know that we would be doing the same thing. So I think we have to be honest about our fallibility and our ability to, just our desire to fit in, a desire to be normal. And that comes into tribalism. Now, the problem with tribalism is you want to fit in with your tribe, right? Like you want to be respected. And that often means that you'll do what works for the tribe, what's loyal to the tribe, instead of what's morally correct. Which is why the concept of why tribes in general, some are okay, sometimes you need to unite around a cause, but we need to do a lot more due diligence and really think about if our tribe is doing the right thing. And again, that's why we go into principle of charity, because we want to be honest that what we think isn't necessarily right. Everything that I'm saying in real time in this podcast might not be right. It's what I think right now, but I want to be open to the fact that it's not. And if often I podcast and someone sends me an email and they say, by the way, you haven't thought about this. And that's what I want, right? Because I want to move, I want to expand, but we need to, as a society, be open to this expansion. Otherwise we're screwed. Otherwise, again, as you say, like, it's pretty polarized in Australia. I know that you guys, that scaled up 100 times, but yeah, it's certainly, it feels like the entire world is all going the same direction, further and further away from, a common cause.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I there's a number of different things you said there, Jonah, that I kind of want to tap into a little bit in our remaining time. But yeah, the concept of fallibility, right, and the concept that we have to make sure as individuals we don't get stuck in our own certainty. We've got to be able to. I've been talking a lot lately about this book called Think Again by Adam Grant. It's just a fantastic book, talking about a lot of concepts that people should be more aware of. But far too often, when we think about tribalism, how do we get there? How do we end up getting stuck within our tribe and not wanting to even broaden our horizons to the idea that we might be wrong? Is our tribe really the tribe that makes the most sense to be part of? As we allow ourselves to get stuck in these groups, we often will do things and say things that we probably never or wouldn't have otherwise done just to fit in. But it's that fallibility. We are human beings. We make mistakes. But if we get stuck in that mindset that we aren't wrong, or the people that we're with are not wrong, we have to do what they do because they are right. That ability to actually look outside ourselves and say, hey, this might be wrong. Or, hey, I've been working off this information or this subset of information that I have, and that's what I thought was the right answer. But I might need to think about this a little bit more because
Mm,
I don't think this is right. People's ability to shift has to be respected because if we do not allow ourselves to course correct when things
mm.
are going wrong, or we bust on other people for course correcting when they've found new information, we're sunk. I mean,
Yeah.
we have to be able to course correct. Just like you're talking about. 100 years from now, they're going to look back on a lot of the things that we're doing today and be like, I can't believe those people did that. Well,
Hmm.
how do we get there? We get there because we
Exactly.
course corrected, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the problem is, Wilk, that takes a lot of work. There's a big cognitive load to thinking about what someone else is feeling and what thinking about what they're saying and then doing your due diligence and having the intellectual rigor to see if your default ideas aren't correct and to change and to go outside your community where everyone's reinforcing the same idea. That all takes a lot of work. What's really easy is just to hate the other side. That's
Just to
easy.
hate the other side and go with the flow. This is what my
And
group is doing. I'm just going to do it.
I'm gonna do it. And the added problem is that it's energizing. If you want to go protest against something and just assume you're right and go, oh, we're gonna fight these evil people till the death that we're gonna do it. We're gonna standing up for good. It's exciting, if you don't have anything else going on, that's a reason to wake up in the morning. We're gonna go take down these guys. We're gonna take down those guys. It doesn't matter who you are, left or right. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm,
There's an energy to taking down something, and it's fueled from hate and anger. But these emotions, like, they cost you in the end. They really do. They
absolutely.
really cost you.
No, they absolutely do, Jonah. They do cost. They're not. None of this stuff comes without a cost. My question for you then, Jonah, is, you know, obviously, I mean, people on the DTH podcast have heard a lot about my story and how I've worked through a lot of my own demons and got to a place where I'm not angry all the time anymore and things like that. What was it about your life? Because I know that a lot of this came out of a lot of this knowledge and wisdom that you're putting into the podcast that you work on and the things that you do came out of your personal journey. What was
Mm.
it about your journey that kind of led you into waking up to these things, right? That once you kind of get into this work and you're able to recognize the us versus them polarity, it almost becomes second nature because it feels so right. But it's one of
Yeah.
the hardest things that a person can do. What was it about your journey, Jonah, that got you to start understanding this and this, number one, what it was, but number two, how to work through it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I mean, I think it came from a fascination with philosophy in the mind. And I found this, I didn't start with anger being the thing I wanted to reconcile. I started with just sort of dissatisfaction and sadness being my problem because I worked at an investment bank, and then I found that really tough. I didn't like it. I didn't feel like I was doing any good. And then I went to music school, and then I did the sort of musician thing, played in bands. This was all after working at a bank. And I found reasons to be dissatisfied with that lifestyle as well, even though both of them were ostensibly going well. Like, there was no issue. I just was finding ways to be dissatisfied. And so
Well,
I had to figure out, if I move on from music to the next thing I get excited about, I know that I'm going to find a way to be dissatisfied with that too. So I need to figure out what's this game I'm playing where I just am never really happy with where I am. I need to figure out where the answers lie. And I found a lot of those answers in Western philosophy, like Stoicism, and also Eastern philosophy, Buddhism. And between the two of those things, I realized that you have to work through the internal stuff. And when you work through the internal stuff, it doesn't matter really what you're doing. I mean, there's some things that are more existentially fulfilling than others, But broadly, you can start to take the width of what you're thinking about down and get closer and closer to the present moment. And the present moment is where experience happens. It's where joy happens. It's where you see beauty. But you can lose all of that by being lost in thought, by thinking about, let's say, who you hate, who's wronged you, why some people are rich, some people are poor, the injustice of that, the injustice of racial inequality. You can be constantly thinking about all these different things and missing out on real life. And a lot of those things for me were just selfish things. Like I just wanted to be richer. I wanted to be playing bigger venues, whatever, like all this different stuff. I just wanted different things. I was always wanting something. And the answer is not to get what you want. The answer is to want less. And once you do that, you've completely reduced this margin of suffering. And from there, in that investigation, I realized that a lot of these principles don't just apply to depression and sadness and dissatisfaction, but they start to apply to everything. Anger, anxiety. You can start going, okay, I'm not my thoughts. Thoughts appear, but I don't have to identify with them.
That's right.
I can always come back to the now. And that really helped me with anger. It really helped me with anxiety. And it's just helped me find joy and satisfaction wherever I am, whatever I'm doing. And it's helped me be present and have, far better relationships. Like I'm here with you now, Wilk, enjoying this moment. We're having a beautiful human conversation across the fucking planet. That's incredible. That is incredible. But imagine if I was sitting here being like, oh, I wish I had rephrased that, and not actually present. Then I'd miss your whole conversation. I'd miss everything you're saying because I'm stuck in the past. Or the same thing. I go, oh, what are they going to think when they hear me say that? I'm not even sure I fully agree with what I just said. Then again, I miss what you're going to say. Yeah. And this ability to come back to the now has been the most exciting and satisfying thing I've ever done. And now I've been doing it for 10 years. So I'm getting better and better and better at just being here now with people, enjoying relationships, enjoying beauty, enjoying the foam in my beer, the wrinkles in my shirt, whatever it is, like just enjoying life. Because I'll tell you what, like life is damn short. It is damn short. And, we want to be here. We want to be here for it. We really want to be present. We don't want to be thinking about our job when we don't have to be. We want to be with our family. We don't want to be thinking about whether or not, China's going to invade Australia. That's one of the things we worry about sometimes. We don't want to be thinking about that while we're having, lunch with our best friends. We want to be there with our best friends. And anger, sorry, just the thing with anger, because it's your space, but like, you can get angry about anything. We play soccer sometimes. We get a bad call. That can ruin your weekend.
Oh my God! Yeah. No, and you have just touched on so many incredible points, Jonah. But being present in the now, enjoying things for what they are, being grateful for the things that we have, and not focusing on the things that we don't or the things that we want. Such incredible points for our own peace of mind and being able to relate well to others in the present, in the now, being able to enjoy these things. This has been an incredible conversation, Jonah. A lot of importance there, a lot of wisdom comes out of that. And the formula, I think the biggest thing that I take away from that last thing that you said, the formula is not that complicated. It's not nearly as complicated as many would believe, because if we focus on the present, if we enjoy the space that we're in and just take things for what they are and not worry about the things that are outside of that particular space or the things that are outside of what we can actually control, we are so much happier as human beings. Because no matter where you go, there you are. Can't remember who said it, but it's damn important. No matter where you go, there you are. So you better work on yourself, because you're the first person in your space. You are in that space. And if you want to enjoy that space, you better be enjoying your own company, which is you. So much greatness in that Well, so much greatness in the whole conversation, Jonah. I want to thank you for joining me here on the Derate The Hate podcast. Even though we are on opposite ends of the planet, we're definitely in the same space mentally on so many of the things that we're talking about. And even if we weren't, we still could have an incredible conversation.
That's right.
Because of the way that we work through these things, right? It's a beautiful thing. Jonah Primo, just a fantastic conversation. Tell the DTH listeners real quick, where can they find out more about you, and where would you like them to go to do it?
Yeah, so I host a podcast called The Overexamined Life. It's just 2-minute, it's 2 10-minute episodes a week where we just explore wisdom from both the East, the West, about this kind of stuff, about how to get more fulfillment in everyday life, no matter what your circumstances are. Everything, dealing with pain, dealing with anxiety, dealing with a fight with your spouse, everyday life, but using big thinkers, big wisdom. And occasionally we do, interviews and stuff with Buddhist nuns and, the great American philosophers, head of departments at MIT, the best thinkers in the world. So yeah, come check out The Overexamined Life and we'll try and make your day a little brighter.
Super cool, man. Anybody who's trying to better the world is a friend of mine, and The Overexamined Life looks like a good place to do it. Jonah Primo, thank you so much for joining me here on the Derate The Hate podcast. I do appreciate you. I'm grateful, and we'll do her again. Thank you.
Thanks, Wilk. See ya.
Friends, if there's anything in this episode that provided exceptional value to you, please make sure to hit that share button. Share it with your friends, share it far and wide. And of course, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe right from our website so you can get the Derate The Hate podcast sent to your email inbox every week. So this is Wilk wrapping up for the week saying get out there, be kind to one another, be grateful for everything that you've got, and remember it's up to you to make each and every day the day that you want it to be. If there is something that you would like to share with me, you can catch me on most social media platforms, or you can email me directly, wilk@wilksworld.com. With that, my friends, I am going to back on out of here, and we will catch you next week. Take care.